Advocate, Madras High Court, columnist, author, former resident editor, NDTV 24/7. Kamini Mathai, a very reputed journalist. And Dr. Mini Rao, as I said before, one of the most cheerful psychologists I've ever come across. Now, Igniting Minds, I'll give a very, very brief intro saying Igniting Minds was started with the purpose to, kind of set a spark amongst children to start thinking. And I believe that the only way we inspire or we get inspired is either through books or through people. And these days, more than books, I can see that it is people who are inspiring the generation, which is the millennials, as we call them. And I do understand, in fact, I've got a lot of messages today morning saying, ma'am, Igniting Minds has definitely had an impact on me. More than the career counseling sessions or more than all those, huge sessions what we have, when children meet people who have made it big in life through sheer hard work, through all those passages of, rigorous work, they realize that there is so much more to life. They realize the amount of opportunities which await them. They understand that how actually life can be built. So please allow me to, and this day I thought we must have an exclusive session for our teachers. We dedicate this entire HIS Ignites Minds to our teachers who have been the backbone of every kind of child who's made it big, and to every school, my wishes again to them. And before I could introduce our panelists, once again, a very, very happy Teachers' Day. I wouldn't want to waste much more time because all of us are eagerly waiting to hear all three of you. Now, talking about Sanjay Pinto, before donning the black gown as an advocate in Madras High Court, where he specializes in media, criminal, constitutional, corporate, arbitration, and consumer cases, Sanjay Pinto was the resident editor of NDTV 24/7 and the executive editor of NDTV Hindu and a former national debating champion. I am myself, I can vouch for the way he trains students to do debating, and everyone is a success out there. Sanjay definitely wears many other hats. He's a legal columnist with Deccan Chronicle and has published over 230 legal columns till date, a panelist on national TV debates, author of 3 books, out of which 2 I have read, My NDTV Days, Justice for All, and Speakers Are Made, Not Born. Sanjay represented India in the IVLP program on the rule of law and judicial reforms in the USA in 2014 and is a guest lecturer at law schools in India. Sanjay, thank you so much for being here with us this evening. Every word of what you say is going to matter to us. Thank you. Kamini, a dear friend, she's been a journalist for the past 22 years, first with the New Indian Express and then currently as senior assistant editor with the Times of India. She was a part of the team that launched the Times of India in Chennai in 2008. Amazing. She is the author of A.R. Rahman, The Musical Storm, which was published by Penguin. I'm waiting to get my hands on this book now. It became a bestseller, having sold well over 10,000 copies and was translated in several languages like Telugu, Hindi, and Marathi. Excerpts from the book were included in Jerry Pinto's collections of writing on Bollywood called The Greatest Show on Earth, and as well as in the 2018 publication Notes of a Dream by Krishna Trilok. She loves sports, and in her spare time she swims, rows, does martial arts, and recently got a PADI certificate for scuba diving. At the moment, she's learning to surf. I think you're just opening up more avenues for us, not only as a human being, but just as a person. It's so beautiful to hear a human being can do so many things at the same time. And as the conversation which was happening before we could actually go online, I heard the 3 speakers, actually do so much apart from what has been mentioned here. And we are waiting to hear that. Thank you, Kamini. Thank you so much for being here with us this evening. Dr. Mini Rao. She's been in the mental health field for the last 15 years and has been striving hard to educate the masses in the field of mental health. Dr. Mini Rao, through various channels like television, radio, newspapers, magazines, and her talks in various schools, colleges, and corporations, is constantly educating people and making them aware of what is mental health and how important it is to have good mental health in order to function well on a day-to-day basis and be productive in society. I cannot agree more on this, especially in times such. And I'm sure all my teachers also are required to understand that mental health for a teacher is also extremely important. She was awarded the best outgoing student in her BA and the second rank in the university in her MA. She also stood first in her MPhil. Her PhD thesis is a comparative study on burnout between IT employees and the BPO employees and was published in the Journal of Psychological Researches, an international journal. She also dons many a hat, including that of a panelist, chief guest, speaker, writer, judge, and an ambassador for many, many social causes. And the social causes, to name a few, are Chennai Turns Pink, a breast cancer awareness organization, an ambassador for peace, United Nations Peace Federation, a spokesperson for KARE, and an organization that wants inclusion of special children in normal schools. I think the NEP also has mentioned that. A volunteer for the NGO, the Candles, and a crusader for educating children infected with HIV. Dr. Mini Rao, I am most happy to have you with us on this special day, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Going into the panel discussion of the day, I start with a very, very simple question, which could have a very beautiful answer, I must say. The impact which a teacher has had on all the three of our panelists, both during school and college. It'll be a pleasure to hear from you. And one point is one thing, I want my teachers to get inspired. And at the same time, I want them to know how important they are in the life of a child. When they deal with those souls which are sitting right in front of them, how important they are, which many a time we fail to realize. So Sanjam, I want to begin with you. So please tell us about the impact a teacher has had on you. And given that Madam Judith Pinto herself was a teacher and you remember her so fondly, your loving mother as the kindest teacher on earth.
Thank you, Bharti. Hi, Mini and Kamini. You know, my mother was my first teacher. She was a kindergarten teacher and she taught me law. She taught me law when I was in kindergarten, and she taught me law unwittingly. And that first legal maxim that I had learnt in my life was this: never be a judge in your own cause. So although I was slated to join my mother's section, SKGA in Don Bosco, Egmore, my mother felt it would be unfair. So she put me in SKGB, where I was under the tutelage of Miss Amla. Miss Amla was my first kindergarten teacher. And, you know, little things matter. These little incidents remain in your mind forever. I remember one day my shoe was very tight and I was extremely restless during the class. So Amla Miss took me, I mean, any other teacher would have probably just said, it's okay, why don't you go out, go to the, today they have nurses and all in schools, or why don't you just go out and come back again, or remove your shoe and sit there. She took me, placed me on her lap, and then removed the shoelaces, opened the shoe, and then found that it was indeed tight. So she took a blade, cut the back of the shoe, and she made me sit. Later, we found that there was some paper actually stuck inside the shoe. But this is literally stepping into the shoes of a child to know how it feels, not to dismiss something. If there's some minor discomfort, don't just neglect that. So I thought caring came at a very young age for me, apart from my mother's care and affection. The very first teacher in my life, Amla Miss, she set that, she set a very high bar in that sense, very high standards. And later on, I think what we really need from teachers, and the reason why we instituted the Kindest Teacher Award in Chennai, and we hopefully be bringing it to the Hindustan group of schools as well. The first edition is going to be in Don Bosco, Egmore. We felt that kindness as a virtue needs to be celebrated. We have teachers who are felicitated for getting, for producing the maximum number of centums, for instance. And these are invariably higher secondary teachers. The kindergarten teachers who actually matter the most, who spend those crucial formative years with children, molding them, they need the maximum patience. It's not easy to deal with kids these days. Ask me about it. I have 2 9-year-old children, twin children, and it's extremely challenging. So I think we wanted to celebrate kindness, and therefore we're going to take this award across the city. We want kindness to be a virtue that people really celebrate. And that's why the Mrs. Judith Pinto Memorial Kindest Teacher Award will go around Chennai every year, because we want this to really gain traction. Kamini and I go back many years from our debating years in college, so I don't want to speak too much. I'll end with this, and let's have a fruitful exchange of views. I'd definitely like to hear what Kamini and Mini, the psychologist, have to say.
Should I? Thank you, Sanjay. And I can understand if after all these years you're remembering Amla Miss from Senior KG, I can very well understand the impact and the impression that she has had on you. Kamini, we wait to hear from you.
So for me, actually the teacher who possibly had the biggest impact on my life was someone who never taught me any subject. He was the principal at my school and he taught chemistry, but he never taught me. So it wasn't in the subject that he inspired me, but with what he did. And this is one thing I will never forget, because I was in class 11. It was towards the end of class 11. And in my school at that time, which is in Vellore, at that time, Vellore wasn't, as hep as it is now, even if it's not. But anyway, so he, in that time in our school, the boy was always the school captain and the girl was always the school vice captain. There was no equality there. It was this every year. So I went up and then I said I want to change this, and everybody said don't go, he's kind of scary and all, and he'll just simply shout at you, just don't go to him. But nobody in those days sort of went and met the principal, but I fixed up and I went and I met him, and I had this big spiel on gender disparity and equality and everything. But he just sat me down and he said, okay, what is it? I said, see, for years, why does the girl have to be the vice captain and why does the boy have to be the school captain? Why can't they both be head boy and head girl? And I've done research, this school has it and all. So he just said, you know what, you're right, why not? So let's give it a shot from this year. And then he just asked me, why are you so interested? I said, because I'm going to be head girl next year. And I was so sure of it because my brother's class was voting, so no way they'll vote for somebody else. But yeah, so I went out, and that was the first year that they actually changed things around. So I became officially the first head girl of that school. It doesn't seem like much, but it made such a difference in my life, because I still remember him to this day. He's now in Kerala. I still, look him up on Facebook, because that one thing sort of changed it, that, someone is willing to listen. He was the first teacher that sort of really listened to me, and that I feel, even though he never taught me a subject, it made me think that, what, if you have something to say, go ahead and say it. Don't be afraid of what other people will think or other people will say. And that's a lesson I've sort of carried with me through my life, just don't be afraid to say what you have to. So I think this is the one teacher, Mr. Matthews, who really inspired me despite not teaching me any subject. So that's my...
So nice to hear, Kamini. And the very fact you said that, somebody waited to listen to you and has given you the courage to speak up. And that really matters. And so, and with this, I kind of remember what we do in our Hindustan group of schools. We have something called Coffee with the Principal, a very informal talking session, what we have with the seniors, where they can just talk openly.
It's very important, because, it makes such a difference to a teenager,
and
when
they
you're
know
16.
that they have someone to talk to. And they can just be free and with no inhibitions, no boundaries, no words, nothing. So thank you so much, Kamini, for bringing this point. And Dr. Mini, we're waiting to hear from you, the reason for your cheer and the happy psychologist that you are.
Kamini, hearing from you, I think you should start classes on assertive training here. You make a wonderful, assertive trainer. So anyway, for me, it was in 6th standard. She was my 6th standard class teacher, and she was my English teacher. And I was a very bad student, very, very below average student. I was highly interested in sports. In table tennis, I was an athlete. I never used to concentrate on my studies. But this particular teacher, she wouldn't reprimand me or scold me or humiliate me, but she used to motivate me in such a beautiful manner. Okay. And, I got so highly motivated by her. She's called Miss Soons. I can never, ever forget her. I studied in Church Park. And so she used to motivate me. And, during parent-teacher meetings, she would never scold my parents and say, how come she's not studying, make her study. Very, very gentle lady. And it's because of her that I actually scored 190 out of 200 in advanced English in 12th standard. It's because of her that I scored so highly in English. I'm truly grateful to her. And there's another teacher. She was my sports teacher in Church Park, Mrs. Shakuna Zavera. So she is the one who motivated me to, give importance to sports. And I became a state level table tennis player because of her. These are the two teachers I'm most grateful for. And happy Teachers Day to Miss Soons and Mrs. Shahuna.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for that. And I hope all the teachers' names that 3 of you mentioned are somewhere listening to this and feeling so proud and happy to see and hear all this. Thank you. But I would definitely, before going in, I would also like to ask General Matthews, who was the teacher who impacted him? Please, sir.
Well, firstly, ma'am, after listening to such distinguished people, they've all touched actually very, very important things, which I think are cornerstone of any good person's life: kindness, empathy, and these are things which are not taught. They have to be imbibed, they have to be absorbed, and not by words, by the actions of the people who influence us. And there are two sets of people who influence, and both these sets have been mentioned by our distinguished panelists. One is by our teachers, what we learn in school, and more important, what we see at home. The problem comes when there's a dichotomy between these two environments. I'm told something, but what I see at home is different. So each one of my teachers, I've been a very average guy all my life. But one thing which I am proud about and which I'm different from many people is two skills which I have learned over the years, down the 63 years of my life. One is the skill of observing and the skill of listening. I've made this my passion. And no books, just keep watching people, watch them dispassionately, and pick up the good things. And what you see bad is what you have to stay away from. So actually, a bad guy is also a teacher. These are two very basic aspects. Each one of, fortunately, my father was in the army. He sent me to reasonably good schools. We had very, very good teachers. And the focus was not so much on teaching, is how you teach. What are the things you don't do? How do you behave when your principal is around? How do you deal with students who are not so accomplished? Because finally, at the end of this journey, what is it all about? It's not about what you gained. It's about what you could give to others. And this is what I've learned, and I have to, if I list out all my teachers, so many of them, it is to find out the spark in each child. Like the example the distinguished doctor gave us, every one of us has a spark. Now, unfortunately, nobody sees it in most people, and it just goes away, wasted. So good teachers are all about looking for that spark in each of us and then making us optimize. So I can't explain how important teaching is. And teaching is not only teaching others. The biggest teacher is the fellow who's the biggest learner. Every day we are learning. So I find this whole aspect, I've been involved very deeply with the education field in the past couple of years. But otherwise, though I've been a soldier, I've been passionately involved with education. Real nation builders are our teachers, and we teach because it gives us happiness. We don't teach because I get some salary and all this sounds very good. The real good teachers are the ones who teach because it gives them happiness. The real good psychiatrists, the real good psychologists are those who are doing what they are doing because it gives them joy. The real sportsmen, the real journalists, the wonderful times I've seen Sanjay on television, what struck me, he's doing it with happiness. Today morning, I won't mention the name, I saw a person in my office. I said, ma'am, you're looking so happy. Finally, you have to be happy in what you're doing, because if you're not happy in what you're doing, what happiness can you execute? What happiness can you distribute? Just listening to them 3, 4 minutes only, I'm sure we'll have a wonderful, wonderful session. God bless all our panelists. God bless all my wonderful teachers. And God bless our wonderful Bharti madam. Thank
you, sir. And I think that's why sparking all the, getting that ignition done for all our children, HIS ignites minds. And as sir rightly put it, parents are the first teachers at home, and at school, the teachers become the first mothers or the fathers. It happens. It's a dual role we play. Okay, coming to my next question, which is quite, I think we'll have to face it. If we have to have more teachers coming in, we'll have to face this question. And my question will go to, this question will go to Kamini, and then I'll come around. The contemporary challenges you think the teaching community is facing. Your views on it.
I think, I don't know, today, at least with this whole pandemic, I think the biggest challenge is technology. You know, how to sort of not even master it, but just, equip yourself with how to deal with technology. Because, like one of my psychologist friends was saying, students today are technology native, whereas teachers are technology migrants. You're here, you're navigating a whole new sphere, you don't know what's happening, and students take you for granted, take you for a ride and all that. So I think the most important thing is you don't have to be a whiz, you don't have to be a hacker or a software engineer, but just embrace technology. Don't be scared of it. Or even, learn technology from your students. Use them to make a class interesting, or, use them to make a nice presentation, which you can use. I think now teaching has to move from the blackboard and I know it all to more of a collaborative effort. where students are involved, where, you know, students are part of it. Get them to use their technology knowledge to help you make your lesson better. Because I think that's one of the biggest challenges that teachers are facing today, technology. So I think if we can get students involved in a lesson or in a class, it might just help, you know.
No, Kamini, the change has already happened, because when I see my own small children, teacher giving a lesson or wanting them to do it,
Correct.
they do it most happily because they can see them on screen. So when they
Correct.
see themselves and they kind of, you know, get that confidence pep that yes, I am taking a class and my teacher's observing me. So the process is on, and believe me, through this pandemic or the situation that we are going through, the way teachers have absorbed the
Yes,
entire
absolutely.
technology, it's been amazing. Yes, my
Correct.
heart does go out to the children and teachers in the poorer sections in the government schools or in the rural areas, but I really hope a magic or miracle could happen for them. But believe me, over here, technology, yes, in the first few days it was kind of, you know, they're alien to it, but now it is most friendly, and the teachers definitely want to explore more, and they have their hands completely on it. So I keep telling teachers, you've done amazingly well.
Yeah. There's just one more thing also. I think even the student has changed. They're no longer the just the, you know, quiet listeners who will just, you know, absorb everything you say or pretend to absorb and just move on. They now want to be part of the process. They want to assert themselves. They want to be equals, treated as equals. And I think that is important for teachers also to, you know, so sort of
Accept and go on.
accept now. Yeah, because the student has changed. He's getting his
True.
lessons from everywhere, from an Oswald guide,
Oh,
from
yes.
a textbook,
Oh, yes.
from a Byju's, from a Toppers. But what he's looking at a teacher for is more, something more, someone who he can talk to or listen. You
So
know,
how much
listens
more
to.
competent, how much more
Yes.
well-read have we got to be?
Yeah, I think it's more a, you know, equal kind of a thing.
Yes.
I don't know.
Sanjay, I would like to listen from you the contemporary challenges which our teachers are facing.
I think, and I'm not saying this because Lieutenant General Bobby Matthews is on this program, but I think soldiers and teachers need to be the highest paid professionals in our country. Sadly, they are not. And I say this time and time again till the cows come home at every function that I go to preside over at schools and colleges. Teaching should be much more remunerative. Teachers right now look at it as a vocation and not as a profession. But if we have to attract the best talent, first, we have to get out of this ostrich tendency and stop talking about, oh, teachers do it for the love of teaching. Of course they do it for the love of teaching, but they've got bills to pay. They've got bills to pay, and they've got families to feed, and they've got school fees as well to pay. They've got the future of their children to look after. So I think if you want to have the best teachers, we need to pay them much better. The pay scales need to improve a lot. That apart, that challenge aside, I think the challenge today for a teacher is to be able to recognize the talent of children or students under them. I give you a small example. Am I audible, Bharti?
Yes,
Yes,
Sanjay,
yes.
you are.
When I was in class 6, when I was in class 6, I hated mathematics. I just didn't have a head for mathematics. Okay, I think there's some disturbance.
Can I just say something? Anybody who's not speaking, if they can be on mute,
Yeah,
then
they
this
have
won't
been,
happen.
they have been.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to continue now. Is it okay?
Aarti, can you just mute yourself, please?
Okay, now it's fine. I think the higher pay scales got a lot of people excited, I guess. Now, Bharti, when I was in class 6, in fact, when I was from 6 to 12 in Don Bosco, I hated mathematics. I didn't have a head for mathematics. There was a teacher, we talk about good teachers, there are teachers who also had controversial methods of teaching, who had a separate row of, for students called LIC. It stood for Lazy Idiot Colony. No surprises, I was in the first bench in that particular row. I just didn't have a head for mathematics. And then I had to, again, because I didn't want to leave Don Bosco, all the groups had mathematics as a compulsory subject. I wanted to study history instead of mathematics. So I studied history. I took mathematics along with commerce and accountancy in class 11. Half the class failed in class 11. Half the class. All right. And then later, in class 12, again, the same thing happened. We couldn't keep the red line away. And at that point, the principal told me, why don't we give you the history group? It was unprecedented. So I said, all right, father, I'll go and, I'll try to get the history group. But he said, the onus is on you. You have to go to the education department because the nominal roll has already been sent. So I went to the education department, and then I met the director of school education. And this was history made, all right. As a class 12 student, we got the government to pass that GO The director of school education then was a former parent of our school, and he said the problem today with many teachers, especially those who teach mathematics, is that they'd like to teach in their homes through tuitions. And he flagged a very important issue. 2 months before the public exam, we got history and we all passed. So this was how, the principal took a bold decision. The same principal, I was a very shy kid. Most people would not come. He definitely would not believe this. I used to hesitate to answer my attendance roll call in class. I was that nervous a kid. I was a nervous wreck. But there was this principal who used the school assembly every Monday and Thursday to give a chance to one student to address the whole school. So that's how my public speaking started. A very shy, reticent child blossoming into a public speaker. And then when I went to Loyola College, there I found that the college magazine, and in fact, when I was in Don Bosco again, I started writing letters to the editor those days in the Indian Express. And every time my letter would get published, my class teacher, Mr. Fonseca, Emmanuel Fonseca, would come and say, I read your letter. Every time I'd see, and he would put it up on the notice board in the class. Every time I'd see people reading that notice board, my heart would swell with pride. When I went to Loyola College, I found that the college magazine had 8 pages for articles by students. A college of about 1,500, 2,000 students then had only 8 pages for articles to be written by students. So I went and complained to the principal then, Father Xavier Alphonse. He said, instead of complaining, why don't you do something about it? I said, sure, I'll start a students magazine in college. He said, why not? That's a great idea. So thanks to him and then Professor Oscar Niggli, the Dean of Students, I started a students magazine in college called the Loyola Herald. So this is a classic example of teachers, of principals, actually helping students discover their true talent. If you're not good in mathematics, it doesn't mean you're a dunce. You may have some other talent. I was not good in mathematics, and I will say it. I will shout from rooftop saying this. I was very poor in mathematics, but I had other talents. And therefore, because it took someone to understand that, someone to actually empathize, someone to recognize my other skills, that I am where I am today. And after journalism, I also moved into law practice now. That's another thing I think teachers should understand. Don't tell your students that there's only one career option for them. There are multiple career options. Look at Lieutenant General Bobby Matthews. He's now an educationist after mentoring scores of soldiers in the army. So I think we need to keep our options open, and teachers need to be aware and alive to this possibility. Martin?
Very, very true, Sanjay, because I remember last year I had a child in grade 12 in the IGCSE syllabus. She finishes till 11 doing physics, chemistry, and then suddenly she gets this spark. Ma'am, I want to do economics. I said, are you ready? She said, yes, I am. I said, do you have the confidence? Will you study by yourself? She said, yes. I said, then go ahead. And she's absolutely doing so well, and such a pride to see her. As you rightly said, I think we must give that bit of liberty and chance to the children and be a lighthouse and watch them and just have that hold on them, but allow them to explore a bit. So Sanjay, your points are definitely taken, and I think all the teachers who are listening will definitely make it a point to mark this very important point. Thank you so much. Dr. Mini, we are waiting to hear from you.
Yeah.
Contemporary challenges. I think you will speak from a
psychologically speaking, what teachers go through is something called burnout. Burnout has 3 components. One is emotional and physical exhaustion. The other is cynicism. Like Sanjay said, they are not paid properly. They are very underpaid and overworked. So they have some kind of disillusionment. And the third point is a lack of appreciation. Teachers are taken for granted. I mean, nobody appreciates them. Just on teachers, they alone, giving them gifts and flowers are not enough. They need to be appreciated every day. And the other point I would like to meet is teachers should have someone to talk to. They should have a counselor in place so that they can talk about their problems, their frustrations, their worries, and their anxieties. So I definitely would think a psychologist has to be made mandatory in every school for the teachers and for the students. This is my take on the challenges and the classrooms. There are 50 to 60 students in one class. I think the classroom should be made smaller, fewer number of students, because it's very, very difficult to handle so many children at the same time. And the teachers do get very frustrated with that. So counseling for the teachers is a must. A psychologist has to be made mandatory in every school. That's my take on it.
Thank you, Doctor. And I with all the points that you mentioned, I must say, and I'm very proud to be a part of Hindustan, because Hindustan takes care of most of the points. We have not more than about 20 to 22 children in class. Pay-wise, it is definitely a big yes. And let me also tell you, these days things are changing. Teachers are being recognized monetarily also. So Sanjay, I beg to differ. Yes, on the larger picture, maybe things have not changed, but believe me, things are changing. You're efficient, you teach well, children love you, and you've made a difference. You are definitely being recognized and appreciated. And Dr. Mini, as you rightly said, teachers to have counselors and someone to speak to. Yes, avenues are opening up, and I will definitely take this point from you. But believe me, things are changing, and at Hindustan, all these 3 points are being done. But I think the message has to go louder and clearer to every teacher across the nation for her to know that this has to be done. Right? So thank you so much. And coming to my next question, Dr. Mini, I would like to ask you.
Bob, can I interject for a minute?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I have to be, be off the course now, especially with what Sanjay said. I'll just be very blunt and you must tell me whether I'm right or wrong. While partly what Sanjay said is right on emoluments and I mean, after all, we have to meet the basic needs. What are our requirements have to be met. But there's a little experience which proves this theory not entirely true. When the new scales, University Grant Commission scales came into the education field, and especially in the colleges which were being paid at UGC scales, that means we had professors and all, what scales in the government of India were available to say 200 people now became available to say 20,000 people. And you know what I'm talking about, because then, the assistant professor became equal to something, and finally there were the vice chancellor equal to Secretary Government of India. And it was a radical change. But search your heart, did the corresponding impact be felt at the university or in the college? Not entirely. Am I to understand a central school teacher who gets much more salary than a regular teacher? Is the teaching standards in a normal central school, I'm talking about a normal central school, if any of you could say, yes, it's better than another school. So while paying emoluments is one aspect, I mean, no one can say it's not an important issue. This example which I've given, Sanjay, I don't know whether you would agree with me, you're distinguished lawyer, and so it's not entirely true. The problem lies partly elsewhere. What does society think of the teacher, and what does the teacher think about himself? Now, it's a self-esteem issue. Like, I'm so happy that he was kind enough that the soldiers aren't paid enough, but still there's a Santosh Babu who goes and dies voluntarily. I mean, if today any of us, we say, okay, 100 crores to you, brother, go and knock off yourself. I'm telling you, nobody's going to raise a finger. So why did Santosh Babu do it? So it's a very complex issue. While monetary issues are there, I think the issue is on self-esteem. What does society think of me? And what do I think of myself? So that's one little difference with Sanjay. Unfortunately, the second difference is also with him. If Sanjay is not good in maths, I'm telling you, Sanjay, because you didn't find a teacher who could demystify maths. This is one of our fundamental issues. And today there's so much of research that mathematics is the key to unfolding, unlocking the vistas of knowledge, whether you're an advocate, whether you're an artist or a historian. Because our methods of mathematics teaching is so awful. If God's given you skills, then you just take off, there's no problem. The problem is not about God-given skills. It's about the people like Sanjay and myself. I became good in maths, Sanjay, after I joined the army. And I realized all these years I just suffered because slowly I unlocked it myself. So in Hindustan, one of our key issues is ensuring that basic mathematic fundamentals are clear. It's not whether you want to do mathematics and become one of those Nobel laureates, because mathematics is fundamental to our understanding and fundamental to critical analysis, fundamental to so many other things. So two disagreements with Sanjay, I hope he won't bang me on my head. The issue, the third issue which I want to stress on, what are the challenges of teaching? When we were young, and I'm older than all our panelists, we were docile people, whatever you give in the plate, we'll eat. But today's customer is different. He may not be very, we get carried away with technology. You may be very good with a tablet or with on the net. It really means nothing. I've met a lot of, lot of well-read, educated people saying today's kids are smart. I'm going to narrate a story, and I want to be. This is an open interaction. I want myself to be that no, what you're saying is not sense. So, what is the barometer of smartness? You may know a technological aid, you may be a master of it, but yet be a absolute no-gooder. But most of us get so carried away. We say young people using technology, and what is technology? I'm talking about tablets and computers and all with dexterity, and we get carried away because most of us are not very clear how to handle it. But that doesn't make the child smarter, and this is a big misconception in India. It's like giving, give an electronic gizmo to a small baby. After a couple of years, that child knows how to handle it. Does that make the child smarter? Now, this Sanjay, he may relate to what I'm going to say. It is like I've studied in North India. So the ultimate aim of everybody in Punjab is to go to a foreign country, Canada or England, and that's the end of it, And the Sardaji goes there and comes back and says, England mein to sare bade padhe likhe hain. So they said, what happened? What's so good about England? Kehande othe te sare Punjabi English bolde hain. Because in India, the barometer of knowledge and education is English. Sardaji says, there everybody speaks English. What a well-educated society. So, the issue is, it's very complicated. Today's students' aspirations are more. He's more discerning. He's more critical. So that way, teaching has become so difficult. And then, God forbid, this young pandemic came along. Now, not only is the teacher being watched by the student, he's being watched by the parent. He's being watched by a whole lot of people. So the poor teacher is under, worse than clinical analysis is being done on that child, on that teacher. So the challenges are so many. I'd like to hear what Sanjay feels on those two issues which he raised upon. Am I entirely wrong, Sanjay?
Okay, actually 3 issues, and I would vociferously disagree with Lieutenant General Bobby Matthews when he said that he is much older than all the panelists, because it's not evident at all. So vociferous disagreement with him on that score. The other 2 things, yes, about, I'll come to the mathematics bit. See, I for one believe, and I would like to politely disagree with you here, that I for one believe that mathematics may be required up to class 6, perhaps up to class 8, not beyond that. Because I have never had to use mathematics in my life. We use a calculator for everything. I have never had to use mathematics in my life as a journalist. I've never had to use mathematics in my life as a lawyer. Maybe as I grow in stature as a lawyer and I'll need some mathematics to count fees paid by clients. But as of now, jokes aside, I think if mathematics is taught, as a compulsory subject up to class 6, that should suffice. Unless you want to, because a lot of children and parents these days know the trajectory that their career paths are going to take. So I know in several schools where there's a click there, and the parents will go to that particular teacher and say, I want my daughter to study engineering. I want my son or daughter to study medicine. And they will have their own tuitions and special coaching classes and all that. You have IIT, Fiji and all these things. So if you are not interested in engineering or medicine, or, and if you're interested in arts, for instance, why can't that mathematics period be used, let's say, for advanced English, or for perhaps even student journalism or legal awareness? These are skills that will matter rather than learning by rote and, trying to, I found mathematics quite a torture, frankly. And it was like a game of snakes and ladders. English history would pull my total up, mathematics would pull it down. Another thing, Hindi as a second language. I studied Hindi. My father told me, national language and all that, you should study Hindi. I studied Hindi up to, and I'm saying this openly for the first time, I studied Hindi up to class 12 in school. Up to class 12. I cannot speak in Hindi in public, grammatically correct Hindi in public. I can string a few sentences here and there. My vocabulary may be all right, but I cannot speak grammatically correct Hindi today. Why? There's something wrong with that. So I think when it comes to mathematics, I don't think every child needs to be taught mathematics if they are perhaps interested in pursuing arts. As far as the pay scales are concerned, yes, but on the ground, I don't think it's, Lieutenant General, I don't think it's really percolated. I know of several private institutions where they are not paid. I know of colleges, forget schools. I know of colleges, those who get PhDs and MPhils. Why is that? It's a vicious cycle. Why is that teachers today, in many schools, end up taking tuitions? They end up taking tuitions only to supplement. Don't tell me they don't want to go and have an afternoon nap at home, or they don't want to spend time with their kids. They take tuitions because they want to supplement their income. They need to supplement that income. And I know of several colleges which they insist on. Now of course you have MPhil and PhD and all as minimum qualifications. They get paid what, 25,000-30,000 rupees after doing a PhD, for a professor, for a lecturer in a college. That's a starting salary for a person who goes to an IT company. So I think there is something wrong. Yes, pay scales are there to some extent, but a lot of private institutions, yours may be, I'm sure, a very ethical institution which goes by the book. I know of cases where teachers are made to sign for a particular amount and are paid less. These are things, as a journalist, I've uncovered. I'm sure Kamini has also seen that. As a journalist, I've uncovered many of these scandals about that. I look at, there are even medical colleges. I remember doing a story, an investigative story, a hidden camera story during my NDTV years, where we found that there was a medical college where it was operating almost out of an apartment building, and the kitchen was like the operation theater. So we've seen shocking stories in our lives as to how teachers are given a raw deal, they are not given their due, and the laws alone are not sufficient. We need that implementation. So as far as, yes, I do agree, especially in the army, it is something else. I mean, it is something else that makes a person put his life on the line. It's not just money alone. But I've also heard stories from army officers, those who lament and say that, look, we definitely need to be paid better. We need to be able to take care of our families better in terms of our pension. There are agitations going on. There were agitations going on in the national capital over this, and I'm sure they all had a reason for that. So money is not everything. Money is not the prime mover, but that vitamin M has to be supplemented as far as the teaching profession is concerned, is my honest view. I'm so happy to be able to disagree, because I'm so used to these TV debates where they don't let you speak, and so I so happy to come across such a polite disagreement with Lieutenant General Matthews, and I'm open to. I mean, if you're able to convince me by the end of this thing, I'm open. I have an open mind. This is my view, and I'm subject to correction. It's subject to correction, whatever I'm saying.
No, definitely, sidestepped what I said. I'm agreeing with all what you said. I said the direct connect between emoluments and performance. And I gave you a live example, a government college where the lecturer is getting government, proper pay scales, and a central school where the teacher, there are teachers who get the lower.
Direct connection, I didn't sidestep. The direct connection was conducting tuitions. If a teacher is paid enough, they will not need to actually conduct private tuitions. And in a lot of cases, teachers don't give out their best in classes, I am told, in the school, because they have their own favorites, those who come sign up for tuition. I know several schools which have had to ban tuitions. They've had to ban tuitions. It became such a cottage industry that I know in many schools, the teachers would actually take an apartment in the vicinity of the school on rent and conduct tuition classes there. Became such a cottage industry. So there are good schools, there are good teachers, there are bad teachers, there are the unscrupulous ones, there are those who follow government norms when it comes to payment. But as I said, money is not the prime mover, but it's important to pay them better than what they are getting right now.
I'm not disputing. I'm just asking you a small question.
Yes.
I want to understand the teaching levels in a central school. I'm just asking, just leave aside everything else. Are they, quantitatively better, qualitatively better than, say, in a non-government school? I'm just asking a question. That's all. I mean, the answer is a matter of perception. It's not. I mean, I really thought it would make a difference, because I believe a teacher should be paid more than anybody else, like they do in Canada, in Scandinavia, all those countries. The teacher is the number one resource. So I used to think as a child, and I've been a little radical guy, I believe in a lot of things. I mean, someday, Sanjay, when we meet, I'll share. So I really thought when this happened, now today, if we have a senior professor getting the scale of a additional secretary, Government of India, is that commitment? I'm saying this because the guy who's showing it would have done it without that salary also. I'm talking about the average guy. Is there a direct, it's like a turbo. When you put on the turbo, you can feel the turbo. I don't think so. This is my very humble experience. I'll leave it at that, Sanjay. What I mean is, I thought, the salary is going to tip the thing. It really hasn't made a difference. In fact, it's become the other way around. Now, people who are on a government teaching assignment, whether it be a college or a school, it's become the other way around. They're laid back chaps now. Now they don't want tuitions also. At least the other fellow was aspiring to do some tuitions. Now he's very happy, and I really don't know whether the increased pay has increased his commitment to teaching. I'll leave it there, Sanjay. It's a little
I will sum up. I will sum up my view on this. That if you want to ignite minds in the classroom, in the school, and pay them better.
Absolutely, no doubt, no doubt.
I must express myself, gentlemen. It's been a very intriguing and thought-provoking conversation which just happened. Thank you so much to both of you. Dr. Mini Rao, my next question. Now, I want more of the youngsters to take up the teaching profession, but I hardly find any youngsters coming up to be teachers. In fact, today when my children wished me, I said, children, I really wish in the years to come, I find a few of you becoming teachers. How do you think we could, attract the youngsters to come into this profession? Doctor, you got to unmute.
I think they should start teaching at a very young age. Like, for example, have, a few sessions in school where the older students teach the younger students so that they get some kind of experience in teaching. It's a highly fulfilling job, teaching, because I've taught in my PhD. I've taught master's students, and it's an emotionally fulfilling job. You are actually giving the person so much of knowledge, so much of ideas. You're molding a child. More than that, I don't think you can get any kind of satisfaction in any other field. My field also is a very satisfying field, obviously, because I remove the trauma, agony of people, who come to me. That way, a teacher completely molds a student. So I would definitely encourage students to take up teaching as a profession. It's highly satisfying.
As you rightly said, till some time back, till we knew that there was a psychologist and there was a counselor, a teacher was everything. And especially in my days, I think all of us, Kamini, Sanjan, all of us kind of belong to the same age span. We never had counselors, or we never had, psychologists to go to. A teacher was everything for us in class. But today there is a necessity with changing times for a child to go to a counselor and psychologist. But basically, a teacher is everything for a child.
Very true.
Right?
Very, very true.
Kamini, how would you woo youngsters into the teaching profession?
Recently I sort of started teaching as well, and I must tell you, the satisfaction I get from taking a class is way more than anything else I've done. You do get paid for it and everything, but the point is that there are free classes you take as well. I don't know, there's just some satisfaction that comes out of it. There's just some joy that's more than with any other profession. And the other reason why I think teaching is a wonderful profession is because you're sort of a learner all your life. And I think in terms of mental health and in terms of just your mental well-being, you're not going to get things like dementia and things like that, because you're just learning all the time. You're constantly using your brain. You're constantly left brain, right brain. You're teaching children, and every year, just imagine you have a bunch, 90 new students, new characters, new personalities, new everything. It's such a challenge. It's something, in other careers, it can get a little run of the mill. You can sort of go into a rut after a while, but, you're doing the same coding all the time. The software engineer probably earn a lot, but I'm just saying here this is just the sheer challenge of it. Why wouldn't you want to teach? I don't know. If I had a chance to go back and start again, I probably would take teaching as my profession, because it's just the challenge is so nice.
Keeps you excited forever. Every time you go to a class, you wait. What are the children going to ask me?
And another way, practically speaking, now everybody's losing their jobs, right? I don't think a teacher is going to lose their jobs. I think the security is quite high. The older you are, the more experience you have, the better for you. Here you're 50 and they're probably going to say bye-bye. But, as a teacher, you're more valued. The older you are, the more experience you have. So in today's environment, it's a great profession to be in. That's personally what I think. You're there, and the better you are at it, nothing like it. You're molding a child for the future. You're molding them. You have so much power in your hands.
I hope all the children and youngsters and everybody who's listening to you listen to this and actually come into this field. We need to create more teachers, come in with the love for teaching.
Yeah,
Sanjay.
That's what I have to say about it. But
Sanjay, you got to unmute.
Yeah, I was just going to say, add fresh air to love. No, but I agree with Kamini, because I'm also, I mentor kids in public speaking, as you know. And I also delivered guest lectures on media law in law schools. I think before you go in to give that lecture, before you go in to teach, there's a lot of preparation that goes on. However accomplished you may think you are, that one little question from a child can completely knock you off. So I think there's a lot of preparation that goes on before you go on to face a class, and that is heady stuff. So I completely agree with Kamini there that there are certain things that money cannot buy really. I do concede there. I'm not eating my words here. I do concede there are things that money cannot buy. The sheer joy of making a difference to someone's life. Teaching is one of those avenues where you can make a difference to someone's life, where you can teach them certain things. I've seen. I'll give you a small example in one of the schools. During the break, we noticed that there was a boy who was sitting very quietly. So I walked up to him and asked him for his name, and he started shivering. So why are you shivering? I just asked you for your name. And then after talking to him, he said that, when he was in class 2, the teacher threw open a question to the class. This boy put up his hand, he answered something, and everybody burst out laughing, including the teacher. And since then, that has psychologically scarred this boy. That has psychologically scarred him for life. So I think teachers have a huge responsibility, like a pilot sitting in the cockpit. Teachers have a huge responsibility, especially in the lower classes, because they're dealing with impressionable minds. You're dealing with those young, impressionable minds. And that teacher, like I said, Amala Miss in my class, for the Xavier Alphonse in Loyola College, there was, I had a great English teacher, Master Michael Sundar, who helped me a lot. I mean, some of those classes, and let me tell you something else, may not be the most popular thing to say. You know what is my favorite subject in school after English? It was catechism. It was catechism. And for some reason, across the board, in fact, today, when I wished many of my former teachers, I threw open this question. I said, why is, catechism is not considered, it's not of a qualifying nature. You just write an exam, all right, but it's not considered in the final tally. We are talking of character building. Catechism in the schools, in the missionary schools for Christians, and moral science for the non-Christians. That's character building. That's the essence of education. And don't tell me that's only of a qualifying nature. That should be made comparative, because moral values are what are missing today. So I would, in fact, through this seminar, I would like to throw open this revolutionary idea, apart from unwittingly having probably sparked some other kind of issues. I would like to say that, let moral instruction, moral science be of a competitive, nature, rather than just of a qualifying nature.
Very rightly said. Very rightly said. After all this, I think I have 2-3 of my teachers who want to ask you a few questions. May I please, with your kind permission?
Sure.
Yeah. Preeti, are you there? You may come up, please.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. This is Preeti from Karapakkam, Hindustan, Karapakkam. So we all know that how teachers are impactful in our entire life. So this question actually goes to Ms. Kamini. Ma'am, I think, what do you think to uplift the standard of teaching or standard learning? Where do we think our country is focusing on futuristically?
No, I didn't get your question, Preeti. Can you just...
Sure. So to uplift the standard of teaching or standard learning, where do we think our country is focusing on futuristically?
I didn't quite get that. Where is the country focusing, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, as a teacher, where do you think you should be focusing, or?
I'm sorry?
No, I didn't.
Can you hear me?
Sanjay, do you want to take? I didn't quite get the question. Preeti,
I think Preeti meant to ask you as to whether, in terms of our in teaching, the standard of teaching, improving the standard of teaching, where do we go from here? How do we improve the standard of teaching in the future? If I understood that correctly.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think basically, personally, what I feel is that as a teacher, if teachers are willing to constantly learn, be on a quest of learning, whether it's their subject or beyond their subject, I think that is the only way to sort of uplift the standard of teaching here. It can't be a focus on just academics. I know teachers are under a lot of pressure these days about the marks and the scores and everything, but I think if it has to go beyond that. It just has to go beyond that to the subject. And I think, I don't know if this is answering your question, Preeti, but I think if in any profession, even teaching, if you're constantly learning how to improve that very subject you're teaching, even if it's trigonometry for 20 years, how to improve that trigonometry, how to make that lesson more interesting, how to change things around. See, students today, I've realized, even with my son, they want to know why they're learning something. They don't want to just learn it. They want to know, what is this stupid moment of a force? I don't know what that is. So if you show them a door, or if you show them why they're learning it, I think that makes it more interesting. Because if it's just a focus on, keep quiet and learn, keep your head down and just learn trigonometry, learn, whatever force, moment, levers, they're not going to do it. So I think if teachers, you take the same subject that you're teaching year in and year out, the same lesson. And if you can think of how to, each year take it as a challenge to make it make it come alive that much more. I think that is the only way to raise the standard of education and learning. It's going to make children want to learn that lesson. I think that is the only way to love what you're doing, to basically love that subject so much that you're going to make it just come alive every single class. Don't look at it as the same old trigonometry class, but look at it as, oh my God, sine theta, cos theta is just coming alive. I'm looking at maths now like that. I hated maths. But now when I teach my son, I love it. I understand it now. I wish I could write a board exam now. I think I'll just do really well because I don't have that pressure on me. It's like a fantastic subject. Sanjay, I'll teach you maths. I'm sorry, Preeti, have I answered your question?
Yes, ma'am.
I think we should discussion actually.
What do you teach? Preeti, what do you teach?
English.
Okay, fabulous. You can that subject comes alive by itself. And I think if you just, every year you look at whatever, the Merchant of Venice or whatever it is that you're teaching with a whole new light and pretend it's your first class and have that josh for it. I think that'll just change, I don't know, it'll just change everything for the student. Instead of just going into class saying, Bassanio, Antonio, you read. It'll make it come alive. I don't know, this is just my perspective on it.
No, I can see the excitement in Kamini when she talks about Merchant of Venice and Bassanio. I can actually see it, all the excitement and energy coming alive.
I think it's just about making looking at it beyond the subject. And I think even in a corporation school, we went there for one of the things, and just teaching the same kids. We taught them some little bit of grammar and all, but even that, they're so used to that book and just opening it and doing some fill in the blanks. And even a simple thing like a 5th standard grammar, you can bring alive with enactment or anything. It's just, I think it's up to us as teachers, or up to you as teachers, to build that into you, to think of each class as a completely new day, new session, and like you've never taught that subject before.
I'm just curious to ask Preeti. Preeti, do you still use a Wren and Martin for English grammar in school?
Yes, sir, still. Yes,
it's yes. Being used?
Personally, we are using it actually.
No, as in, what I mean is as a sort of a reference book for the class, not for the teacher, but for the class. Is it still being used today?
No,
it's there in the library.
Okay, not as a reference book. Okay, because we used to carry it every day in our bag, and it should be the heaviest book.
Sanjay, let's go out of it, Sanjay. Wren and Martin today, no kid will carry it. Sorry.
It's like Waterbury's compound red label.
Two things you've spoken about, and both have touched my heart. One is catechism. I really don't know how many people. I've heard this word after 100 years. I can't believe it's touched the core of my heart. The essence of education is it's all there written in that little book, catechism, moral science, and the next one which we just spoke about, Wren and Martin. What should we say? Relics of the past. It's all modern teaching aids and all. And how good we are in English is a matter of it's a personal. But that aside, Kamini Madam, you really you touched the starter button. The issue is that I have just one more point on about infusing good teachers. Preeti, I don't know what you think about it. You look at ancient India. Two types of people were kept on a pedestal. One was the religious teacher. The king used to take precedence over the Raja. And the next was the guru. The guru in our old scriptures, in all the epics, the guru was, on top of the king. See how society has changed over the years. The king has been replaced by, I'll keep my comments to myself. You know what? A new class has come. At least the kings had some quality. Now we have some other some set of people there. We'll not talk about it. But now see how society treats the other two pivotal elements of this environment. The religious teacher. You look at the quality of the religious teachers. And these are the people who have to show us values, what Sanjay spoke about, moral ethics and moral fundamentals. Now look at the type of religious teachers you have. Because society doesn't value it. So then I'll leave my case on that. So one pillar gone. The next pillar, I'm quoting from what India was all about, is that the guru, the Dharam guru and the Gyan guru. Gyan guru, poor fellow, neglected, nobody cares. In fact, the Gyan guru doesn't care when he tells his child, he doesn't say you must become a teacher yourself. He is aspiring for something else. So it's a very complex thing, Bharati, this what we are talking. It has no answers. It's very societal. It is something very, what should I say? It's a very complex, so really no answers. And I'm so happy Kamini is, fortified my story on maths. And why am I saying it? It's not about, using math skills. It's an empowerment. I mean, I must say this because, once you understand the basics of science, what is electrolysis, we all just mugged it up. I'm going to tell you Gay-Lussac's law of volumes better than anyone, and I'll say it in 10 seconds. When gases react, they do so in volumes which bear a simple ratio to one another and to the volume of the product, gases, temperature, pressure remaining constant. God knows what the hell it means. I just swallowed it because my teacher would bang my head otherwise. And 50 years down the line, I'm rattling it off like a wonderful. So, once you understand maybe what Gay-Lussac's law of volume, God knows where Gay is and where Lussac is, wherever they are, I hope they do well. So it's basically, making a child understand whatever we do. Next point, so brilliantly brought out. We not only looking at why, we must have our Indian students asking why not. So you say, like ma'am said, she teaches a teacher, why is this done? Fine. That's A level. We want an A+, Kamini, mama, whatever your child calls you. Why not this way? And this is where India will then produce the Nobel laureates, the thinkers. Otherwise, we'll still be IT professionals in Silicon Valley with whatever dollars we are getting. Have you understood? As earners, not as disruptors, not as people who are going to change society. And so these are my dreams as an old Indian for me. While I agree earning money and all is important, being in Microsoft, Google and all is very good. We are talking about disruptive people, and how will disruptive people come? When we teach them to analyze why not. Mama, this is fine, very good. Yeah, I'm happy you've taught me why. You tell me why not this way. And when all of us as a society get into this why not mode, you see where this great country of ours will go. I am convinced, I've spoken in 100,000 places. One is being a master of what is existing. That's what most Indians are. We need to be masters of what does not exist and what can exist. Preeti, did I make some sense or just rambling?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Yes, you did. Thank you, Ms. Kamini. Thanks a lot.
I think I'll come back to this later, but I have one more question coming up. Radha, are you ready?
Yes, Bharati, thank you so much. This question I've just taken from what General Matthews was saying about why the teacher is not inspiring their children to become a teacher and aspire to become something else. Now students, the parents are deciding for their children that you should do it and you should become an engineer or a doctor or a counselor or a lawyer. Why the parents are forcing their decisions on their students? So how do we come out of it? What do you have a take on that? Like, what would you say to the parents? Like, there are so many of them on FB Live now. We're listening to you.
Radha, 1 second. Divya, can you please mute yourself? Radha, yes.
Who is the question for?
Radha, I think you need to repeat.
Is it to Mini, the question? I think it's to Mini, right?
Yeah, who was the question to?
Yes, to Dr. Mini.
Yeah.
Yes.
So see, these days, like exactly what you said, parental expectations are very high. All the parents, they want their dreams and aspirations. That's dumped on their children. The children who want to do, many of them have come here with attempted suicides. Okay. If a boy wants to do interior decoration, a boy is not allowed to do interior decoration. It's because it's below his dignity. He has to become an engineer or a doctor. Okay. So the parental expectations have to stop. Parents need counseling. Do they want a dead child or a happy alive child doing what they want? So I personally feel parental expectations are way too high. They should allow the child to have the freedom to choose their choice of subjects so that they do really well in those subjects. You know, I've had a patient who come here with attempted several suicidal attempts because his parents had joined him in an engineering college, paid a huge capitation fee. The boy did not have an aptitude for engineering. So he is, you know, showing his parents his displeasure by attempting suicide. Yet the parents are forcing him to complete the arrears and finish the course. So basically, I think parents need a lot of counseling to allow the child, to give them the space and freedom to choose a career of their choice. This is my take on it.
Thank you, doctor. At the end of it, what I feel is, you know, the role that parents and teachers have to play in the life of a child is so important. And with the discussions which happened prior to this, I think all the teachers who are listening to this must definitely understand that, you know, there is so much of a responsibility on us. And if my distinguished panelists could agree with me, when we were students, we never had smart boards, we never had, I mean, you know, technological aids. But
Yeah,
when a
Renan
teacher
Martin.
taught, yes, Renan Martin, and when a teacher taught poetry or drama or anything, even if it be a science or math, she actually brought it alive. And as Bobby Matthews sir said, you know, he could remember okay, if even if it had been mugging, the way the science teachers brought things alive in class, English, history, just by their gestures, just by their persona, it made such an impact on us. So how much of a responsibility and do teachers have with all the help being given, with all the aid being given to them? So teachers all over who are listening to us, please understand all these discussions and all these words are being said around because we want us to understand that we are at a very responsible position, and we need to understand that we are important for the society, and unless we give ourselves that importance, nobody else will. When you go to a class, when you stand there in front of your children, you must feel that you're actually touching souls. And as for me, I think it's only doctors and teachers who touch human minds and souls. So how important and how much more ready should we be? And as Kamini rightly put, we are evolving every day. And every day when you go to the class, the child expects something new from you. Okay, my mom's going to teach this today. The excitement with which a child comes to school, that says it all. General Matthews, would you like to have a further discussion?
I can't agree more with everybody. Because finally, I have to say again, come back to Indian history and Indian culture. Now, there are two things. It's like an Indian marriage. Unless we are convinced that it can't work, you know, then of course there are other options. But now that we are in this job, how do we make the best of it is what my very humble advice to all of us. You know, one is, for whatever reason, my father pushed me or whatever reason. Now I'm into the water. So how do I make the best of it? You know, this is my little humble advice. Abhi, for whatever reason you've chosen this as a profession, just try and make the best of it. See the happiness it will give you. This is something I strongly believe in. Whatever else be the issues, you know, there may be 100 reasons why this cannot be done. I'm not paid well. And now we are in it for whatever, good, bad, ugly. How can you make this difficulty? How can I make all this into something which will give me joy every day? Because the day you start loving what you're doing, then you're not doing at all anything. You're just making yourself happy. I give this example. I used to often wonder, I studied in, Jesuit schools. The passion of these fellows, there's so many years, and the way he used to be after us, your football's not good, you're kicking it wrong. I used to wonder in an alien country, what is he doing? The answer I learned 100 years later. He's doing it because it gives him joy. Why is Mother Teresa working with the lepers? I mean, anyone will ask, why should a human being work with lepers? I mean, you can work with anybody else. I don't know if she's a saint. I'm nobody to talk on her. Because I'm sure what she did was giving her joy. So she wasn't serving anybody in Calcutta. She was serving herself. Every leper the sore she was cleaning was actually giving her happiness. So my little advice, I know it might sound pompous. A lot of people are very cynical, bakwas kar rahe, you know. My only advice, and it's very humble advice, just learn to love what you're doing. You may be a cobbler, you may be a sanitary executive, you may be anything. It's just in your head. Now, unfortunately, I became a lieutenant general in the army. So now, you know, a lot of people brush me off. You become a general so you can talk like this. I'm telling you, if I was whatever, I would do it because I love what I'm doing. I clean toilets. I've done it in the army as a general. I stand for a security guard. It gives me such joy just wearing that green uniform, the smell of my soldier. It gives me joy. At home, I wash vessels for my wife. It gives me happiness to make my wife happy. So it's a matter of in the head, you know, the psychologist, Dr. Rao will tell me, finally, what is life? Is being happy. And happy with what you haven't got or happy with what you've got. You've got to decide. I mean, aspirational people can be happy with what they want to get. It's like a face. Somebody's given you a face like Brad Pitt, then good for you. But now, if somebody's given a face like Bobby Matthews, then you'll be happy with what you have. So if the choice is yours, happiness lies within. I know I'm sounding like a Swamiji, but the fundamental issue is, it is your choice. You've got to be happy with your husband. You've got to be happy with your teacher. You've got to be happy with your school. And if you're going to be happy with all of them, you'll be a happy person. And if you're happy, you will exude happiness. It's such a cyclic, you know, infinite mantra which has, immense possibilities. So my request to all my wonderful teachers, I don't know why you came into this profession. I couldn't care less. You've come in, make the best of it. Treat this like your religion, treat it like your temple, and see how your life will change. Is all my very, very humble request. I know 50% will say rubbish. He's talking all rubbish. I'm talking about the other 50 because in life, I'm aware there are 50% people even God can't improve. So I'm not even looking at them. I'm not even God. I'm just a useless, humble guy. Even if 15% people believe in what I'm saying, and if my wonderful psychologist, doctor friend, she will give the science behind what I'm saying. Just seek happiness within. Don't search for happiness outside. Everything is inside. Happiness, sorrow, love, hate. You take your class as a temple. You be the pujari. You're the master of your destiny. In that 40 minutes, no one can touch you. I've met a lot of teachers telling me the principal ma'am is useless. I asked that lady, I said, ma'am, is the principal ma'am coming and sitting in your class? No, sir, that she doesn't. I said, then what the hell? You've got 40 minutes. You're a king. You've got 25 students. Let go. Bharti ma'am,
actually,
I think
can
Kamini wanted to say something.
Yeah. No. I just wanted to add one thing. You know, this has helped me, of late because, you know, after so many years in a profession, sometimes you feel like you're in a rut, and this has helped me. You know, I recently started doing it, and it's helped me every day. At the end of the day, just write 5 things that you were thankful for about your job that day. You know, it could be anything. I'm grateful that ex-student asked such a wonderful, it could be the most inane things. I'm so grateful that the internet worked and my class went off well. Just 5 things that you're thankful for about that profession. Like I do it for journalism. It could be the smallest thing. Thank you for this wonderful headline that I thought of today. Any small thing, it just makes your job that much nicer. It just, you suddenly look and you say, oh my God, there are so many things I'm thankful for in this job. And that's one thing that's worked for me. Just write 5 things about my job that I'm thankful for that day. It could be a repetition, but it's really, really a help. And the other thing is, I'm looking at this year with this pandemic as actually a godsend for teachers and students, because there's so little pressure on academics now. It's lifted off. This is the time to bond with the students. This is the time to sort of get to know them. Corona just hit at the right time, I think, for students and teachers to bond. There's a reason behind it. This is what I think, because that pressure of A levels, O levels, A stars, B stars, and A plus is sort of lifted off a bit. At least for my son, it's lifted off. I don't even think he knows there's a board exam happening. So I think that, that bonding is really something to make the most of this year, is what I feel. So that's what I just wanted to say.
Well said, Kamini, I think, and gratitude, an important virtue for all of us to, adapt and go by. It'll really help. Sanjay, one final word from you?
Yes, Bharti.
One final word for all the teachers.
Okay, not a question, but okay, the last word, is it? Okay. See, why is that we all recall with fondness best practices of our teachers? Why is that I started my submissions with Amla Miss and the tight shoe that I was wearing? Why is that we have every student will have favorite teachers? I'll tell you, in Don Bosco, we used to have this practice every year. In fact, we had it one particular year. We had a very strict teacher, Master Selvadurai. Every morning, he would send students back who would enter his office. He was the assistant headmaster. So if you don't say three things, if you don't say good morning, may I come in, sir? Good morning, sir, and thank you, sir, he will make you go out and do it 10 times. But he was loved. He was loved because of the discipline that he infused in us, instilled in us. So I remember on Teachers' Day many years ago, in fact, we lost him 3 years ago. On Teachers' Day many years ago, all of us went in our school uniforms and sat in a class, and he took a class for us. He was an English teacher and a geography teacher on Gray's Elegy. He took a class for us. We all sat there like students. What is it that makes us want to go back to school, want to don that school uniform again, want to listen to our teachers again, want to keep in touch with our teachers again, want to ping our teachers again on Facebook and ask them how they are doing? I don't think this happens in the corporate world. How many people really keep in touch with their ex-bosses? How many people look at other professions and and like to be in touch with them? Teaching is one thing that has that, as some of the panelists said, creates that bonding. That bonding is so special, and that's why long after you passed out of a school or a college, that umbilical cord doesn't ever snap between a teacher and a student.
Very rightly said, Sanjay. I think this is making very emotional of the whole Teachers' Day thing, and we know why our students come back, or we want to go back to our teachers. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Mini Rao, your final word for us today.
Yeah, okay. So basically it's Mata Pita Guruvum Devam. Obviously, Guru is, is considered God. So I want all the students to totally appreciate their teachers, respect them, and, just treat them so well that that they don't feel demoralized in a teaching profession, because it's a very, very noble profession. That's my take on it.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Okay, I come to school every day because I love to see the smiles on my children's faces. I love to go to school every day because I have something new to ask and share and tell my children. I love to go to school because basically I love children and I love what I am doing, and that gives me happiness. I think that's the final word and sentence what I want to say. And to all the teachers who are listening to us, please be rest assured and understand and take in that we are in one of the best professions that God could have blessed us with. And I am definitely proud and happy to be a teacher. And the panel discussion which happened today, I suppose, is one of the best that I've been. And hearing from such beautiful people, I must say. You may be a lawyer, you may be a psychologist, you may be a journalist, you may be a general in the army. But at the end of it all, I can see that you're one of the most wonderful and beautiful people, curated so well by the mothers and parents and teachers. It's been so wonderful to have you on all with us on HIS Ignites Minds. I know you have ignited all our minds, teachers, children, and parents. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much once again.
Okay. I just want to firstly thank our wonderful moderator, Bharti Madam, and three wonderful people who I've got to know better. Thank you very much for sparing time on a Saturday. I know it's a de-stressing time. You've shared time with us. And I don't know, spending an hour and a half, and out of the 100 odd teachers who were listening on, if something has gone somewhere, we've made our evening. Each one of you, I'm not being politically correct. I've always been a radical. Thank you for teaching me something in some way. And when I meet each one of you personally, I'll tell you also. I'm like that. Because this whole process was so wonderful. And this is Bharti's idea, this HIS Ignites, to speak freely. When I was asked, will students be listening? I said, why not? What are we, this transparency is the key to society changing. Why should this be, India, this is another little hassle, only for these people, you're only VIPs, they're only, let's have openness, break all these windows, Hindi mein, break all the walls and say what you have to. If somebody likes it, good. It doesn't like it, just too bad. And it's been such a pleasure. Thank you, sir. Sanjay, thank you for being with us. Thank you, Mini Madam, Kamini Ma'am. I'm looking forward to meeting you, getting to know you better. And I'll request you, I hope you will join us in our, few endeavors which we're going to do in future. and you'll help us a lot. Grateful to each one of you. Grateful to all my teachers who listened in, and I want you to take something back from this little discussion we've had, and not be cynical, don't be judgmental. All of you all just go back after this is over. Okay, fine. These 5 good things we've learned, and let's take it forward. Thank you very much. God bless each one of you. God bless our great country, and God bless all our wonderful teachers. Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Happy Teachers Day. Jai Hind, everyone.
Jai Hind.